Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to our final seminar within the Up and Out Housing mini-series. I'm Larian Rodriguez, the Transition Program Coordinator here at the Veteran Spouse Network. Today's seminar will be broken up into two sections. From 12 to 1 p.m., we will have our housing specialist. And you can stay for all of this, or at 1 to 2 p.m., we will welcome on our rental market specialist. Our panelists are not only real estate professionals from around Texas's hottest growth areas, but they are also military relocation professionals, Texas affordable housing specialist, and ascribe to the Buffini methodology of real estate, which I know that they will go into in further depth, which is a holistic approach to real estate that we here at the Veteran Spouse Network also support. So without further ado, ladies, why don't you go ahead and start to introduce yourselves, starting with Yvonne, who's representing Central Texas.
Okay, I'm Yvette Hoffman. I am located in New Braunfels, Texas. I've been a realtor for the last going on 21 years. So I'm between Austin and San Antonio. So we have a lot of folks that are familiar with Randolph Air Force Base, Fort Sam Air Force Base, or Fort Sam Army Base, sorry, and then also Lackland. So we have a lot of folks that once they retire or exit out of the military like to come back here. Our town is kind of favored over the others because of the quality of life that we offer. So, and at one point, a couple of years ago, we had the highest amount of VA loans in the country here. So some people might think it might be Bexar County where the bases are actually located, but it actually was Comal County. So there's a lot to offer here for the veterans, and we welcome you.
Debbie, you want to go ahead?
Sure. I'm Debbie Carrico. I've been a real estate agent for, I think, about 10 years now. I was an assistant before that. And then I live right outside of Ellington Field, which is a reserve base area. And I'm an Army brat, so I come at it from a couple different aspects of it. The one thing that we have going for us here is we have about a third of the houses, or about a third of sorry, my husband just walked in. About a third of the people who come through for me is our VA loans. So just because you've got a lot of people who retire here, you've got a lot of reservists here, you've got a lot of people who they may not be in retirement, but they're dealing with their second jobs, their second careers. So that's where we're at.
All right. Welcome, Samantha. We have a new guest coming on. And Jody, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I would love to. Good morning. I am Jody Warner, and I am located in the booming metropolis of Bryan College Station, Texas. Bryan College Station is the home of Texas A&M University, which is, I guess, our claim to fame, which is a big one. But also we are the home of the largest per capita of veterans that does not have a military base that is active here. Texas A&M University has launched the Relis campus, which is a new campus which is providing education for Texas A&M University system students from around the state, but they are also building the Army Futures Center there. So we are huge. There are people who are currently deployed teaching here, also working on their master's degree, and Texas A&M has one of the largest percentage of GI Bill students in the United States. So we have a lot of military, a lot of veterans, and a ton of retirees. Everybody seems to like to come to Texas, and we're a great little city that is centrally located between Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas. So welcome to Central Texas.
Awesome. Thank you. I did some of my graduate work at Texas A&M. So even though I work for UT, we still have our connections all across Texas. So thank you for that. So I'm going to start off by asking just some questions and we'll see where the conversation goes. This doesn't have to be a Q&A, but let's bounce off of each other and let this be organic and natural as we talk through the Texas real estate housing market. So right now, how can a veteran or military family be competitive in today's Texas housing market?
Okay, I'll start out. I think the first thing is they probably need to get with the realtor and sit down with the realtor and find out from the realtor what's going on in their market and how receptive the sellers are. And, the realtor will have a lender or lenders that they can recommend to those buyers to put them on the course there. Because that would be the first thing, is to find out what you're pre-qualified for. Also, along with that is knowing what your true needs are and then also your wants. So you're going to want to identify what we call your non-negotiable needs, those things that are the have-tos when it comes to home buying. And then you go from there. But then the lender will kind of drive within your budget. So I've had a lot of clients in the past that are approved for more, but they don't feel comfortable with the payment. So discuss that with your lender, discuss that with your realtor, and that would be the first step I'd recommend.
Also, a lot of people think that the sales price or the offer price is the most important thing, when in reality, there's a lot of other ways that you can set that offer up so that it's not just sales price driven. It's also education. There's some realtors, unfortunately, don't understand the VA loan and don't understand things like Tidewater. They don't call it Tidewater now, but Tidewater and things like that, that will allow us to be able to help the buyers, help the sellers. So it all works together, but you've got to be able to look past just that, $200,000. Let's say we offer $200,000 for the house. Yeah, you may not be the highest, but it's on how you structure that offer. You may be the best.
I was going to add also, please, everyone here, everyone who's watching in the future, know that as a buyer in the real estate market, you have the opportunity to interview agents just like someone who's listing a home. Make sure you mesh with your agent. You have similar ideals. They understand your needs. They understand veterans financing. They also understand when you may be moving. Because in a lot of cases, whenever I have veterans come to me, they'll come to me for a lease because they've got a 2-year appointment at Texas A&M and they want to lease something and they want to spend, I like round numbers. So I'm going to say they want to spend $2,000 a month on a lease. Well, we're also a college town. Leasing is very hard. That $2,000 that they're going to spend over 24 months is $48,000. Okay, if they're going to be here for 2 years, in most cases, our average appreciation is around 3% a year. Obviously, the last few years, it's been much higher. But with an average appreciation of 3% annually, they can buy a home that meets their needs better and turn around and sell it in 2 years. And we can help with that. And then they leave here with either a net neutral because they've paid housing payments, they've paid taxes, but they've had something they've owned. And I've yet to have a veteran that hasn't left it better than they found it. So in that case, oftentimes they make money on the time that they spent here. So it's unique to our market in some elements, but not all, because some areas obviously have a lot more inventory. If you're leaving an area in a northern state that there's not a demand for houses, it's very different. But definitely within Texas, that's something to talk to your realtor about and make sure that you're on the same page as what your goals are and what those numbers look like. Because when you tell someone they're going to spend $48,000 in rent and they might not have AC for 10 days because of the landlord needing to get it repaired, it really makes them value the fact that they can own a home. And it's great for their kids. It really is, to have a place and to know it's theirs and they're not going to have to move at the end of the year if it gets sold.
Yes, absolutely. We do have a question from the chat. How do you select a realtor, or do you have any pointers on finding that perfect realtor that's right for you?
Well, Jody hit on it. You want to find one that meshes with you, that communicates in the style and the manner you like to be communicated with. but Jody, Debbie, and I all work, we work by referral. So what that means is we belong to a network of agents that subscribe the same way. We work relationally. So most of our clients come from either past clients, business associates that we know, or we're known in the community. So that's the best place to start, is to find, ask your friends or family who they know, who, they'll kind of direct you there, but double check and make sure that that realtor is going to work with you as far as your timeline. Jody hit on something, and I work that way as well. It isn't about today, it's about tomorrow and along the process. And then we don't leave you after the sale. And that's part of, and we'll go further into when we say we work the Buffini way on what all that entails. But if you were to contact me today and say, hey, Yvonne, do you know somebody that works the Fort Bragg area? Well, I belong to a network of realtors and I network with them enough that I would probably be able to refer you to someone out in that area. So I'd start there, is with people that you know, people that you trust, and find out their experience and who they've used.
I think there's some key questions for talking to an agent. Not just, how you mesh and how you get along and communicate is huge, but know what their experience is. I think any good agent is going to come at you with, they can tell you all their numbers. If you talk to an agent and they say, well, that's not someone who's necessarily going to be as aggressive as you need. And that word is sometimes misconstrued in real estate. It doesn't mean that we're mean. It means that you tell us what you need. And in military issues, there's almost always a timeline. And so if you tell someone a little bit about yourself, and I'll tell you, one of the keys for interviewing an agent in my mind is that they listen more than they talk to you.
And also that they've got the education. There's a lot of realtors in this area, and unfortunately, that have been realtors for a long time, but they do not educate themselves. So you want to make sure that you have one that goes to classes and knows what's going on, knows what's happening in their market. Somebody may say, I can sell all over the state of Texas. I'm in the Houston market, and I don't even sell all over Houston, because you have to have competency. And without that competency, and if somebody says, oh yeah, I can take care of you, no worries, they're not doing you a service. So make sure that that you have talked to them and they're not just blowing smoke, but you're actually going to be able to work with them and work in the area that you need. Because you could throw out, oh, I need a realtor in Houston, Texas. You're going to get 1.5 million realtors. What you want to do is you want to say, okay, I need a realtor. So talk to a realtor that you trust and have them refer you to another realtor that they trust, because then you get that, you know what you're walking into. And if you don't have one that you trust, you're welcome to reach out to any of the three of us. And we work with realtors across the nation. So we're able to connect people across the nation. I even have some that are like in the Bahamas and in Italy, and one in Russia, so they're realtors that the relationships that we build that are more than just, oh yeah, I know Jody Warner, she's up somewhere in the College Station area, I think she's good. No, I know Jody, and I know how she works. I know how she treats her clients. I know what she's going to do. I can almost tell you some of the steps that she's going to take, not because I'm in her business all the time, but because we work relationally and we work that, and that's how deep we get with our clients.
Thank you. Okay, we had some new people join here in the last couple minutes. For our new folks, just a quick recap. We have our housing specialist from hot housing markets all around Texas talking about how the veteran and the military community can be competitive in the Texas housing market. If you have questions, feel free to go ahead and drop it in the chat, but we will open it up for Q&A here at the end. I kind of have a question as a person who will be using our VA home loan for the first time. Are just two-part question. Are sellers turned off by the VA home loan? And there's a belief that the VA home loan is slower than conventional loans. Part in fact to finding the VA home loan inspectors. What has been your experience with the VA home loan?
I'll
Okay.
take that.
You want to go ahead and take it
Well,
first,
I'll
and
take
then
it
I'll
from
add.
my market.
Yeah.
Understanding that each market is different. It depends on who your lender is. I have one lender, VA, that I can close within 30 to 35 days. And it also depends on how open and if your lender asks for information, you have to give them that information. I have another one that flat out says 60 days. Doesn't matter how quickly you work or whatever, they are just flat out 60 days. So it really depends on your lender. As far as perception, I think that it's all education. If I have a VA buyer and I don't think that the agent on the other side understands the VA, I'll educate them. As a seller's agent, on my listings, I love getting VA offers, because you cannot require the VA, the veterans, to bring more to the table than what is the appraised value is. So let's say, same $200,000 loan, the VA vet says we're gonna offer 220, and then it appraises at 210. They're only required to bring 210. Now, if they choose to, they can bring more, but they're only required to bring 210. However, let's say I have comps that show that I think it can go up a little bit more. That's when they call the Tidewater, and they allow us to bring our price, and we talk with the appraiser. We are not allowed to do that on FHA or conventional loans. When they cannot meet value, they actually reach out to us and say, hey, maybe we missed something. And so that's why, as a listing agent, I just absolutely love VA.
Cool.
And in our market here in the Austin to San Antonio I-35 corridor, most sellers are receptive to VA just because a lot of them have been veterans themselves. So it's when we encounter an uneducated agent or an uneducated seller on the VA process. And in the past, the VA has gotten a bad rap that it was taking longer than the conventional. That's really not the case anymore. Like Debbie alluded to, get with your lender, find out from your lender. Most of the lenders I work with say write the contract 45 to 60 days. I have a guy that when the wind is blowing from the right direction has been able to get them done in 3 weeks. Now, it's not necessarily the lenders doing that, with the closing. The big hiccup that we can find here is getting on the timeline with the VA appraiser, because that is a limited resource. So they're in high demand. So the sooner you get everything that the lender is needing as far as your personal underwriting to the lender and the contract, then they can order that appraisal and get in basically the hopper for that, or in line for the VA appraiser, to come out. Also, I think what will help you is, how you write the offer. And that's where your agent and the knowledge of your agent is critical on how to write the offer, how to structure it, how to communicate with the other agent on, on what's going to happen, how confident they feel with their lender that the lender can make this happen with that contract date.
I'm going to tag in, and I'm not going to say any names, but there are a few very popular lenders that are prominent in the veterans landscape that are very slow to close. That's, I think, where that connotation comes from. I've had occasional good luck with some of those groups, but I'll tell you, as a buyer's agent, I have a local lender that she focuses on VA buyers. That's her specialty. And like Yvonne said, she's going to push it through because she's not doing 2,000 VA loans across the United States right now. She's working with 20 to 30 people, and she's going to sit with my veterans and meet them in person if she has to scan their documents, or tell them exactly what she needs when she needs it, and not just be in that hopper that was discussed. I will say, One catch for a lot of VA buyers, and this may be more on the retiring side, is a lot of them want country land. And when you want country land and a house, or perhaps a manufactured home, something along those kinds of lines, those do get a little more complicated. I will say that competency is huge. Everybody knows we have been in a blistering hot real estate market for the last 18 months to 2 years. That has made it, we talk about Buffini a lot. I'll throw it out there. His favorite analogy right now is even a turkey can fly in a hurricane. That hurricane really affected a lot of our VA buyers because we had a lot of listing agents that weren't experienced and weren't familiar with it, and were just going for the transaction. They were going for the sale. Every one of the three of us and everyone in this amazing network that we're a part of is more about the people than the sale. I would rather give you advice to get you where you need to be and give you my honest opinion than just have a transaction and move on down the road. That said, when we're listing homes, I can tell you right now, if Debbie calls me and says, I have a VA buyer that wants to look at your home at 123 ABC Street, and I know that that home was built in 1965 and has peeling paint, and the seller has zero intent in fixing anything, I'm going to tell Debbie that one's going to be really hard to get through the VA process. Versus many of our VA buyers here are just as open to new construction, and most of our builders are very friendly. We know the ones. I have someone in a contract right now. He was a full career Marine, 100% disability. And we're building an $800,000 home that's custom, that the builder, it's normal earnest money, it's normal everything. And he didn't bat an eyelash at it being VA because the builder is a veteran and his son's currently serving in the Marines. So those connections and relationships are what really matter. And as Brian said in an event that we all listened in on yesterday, the winds are dying down. So the turkeys are going to be fewer and farther between. And we're still going to be here to help you guys and get you to where you need to be.
Thank you. That's very, very reassuring. So I'm currently an active duty spouse, and we are building what we call our someday house. And there are a lot of transitioning military families that can relate to this. You've lived all over the country or the world, and you've had a lot of likes, and you've picked up different things that you like along the way that you want in your someday house. So my question is, how do you manage expectations when going out to try to buy the perfect someday house in this market?
I don't think it matters if this market or any market. It's not a process of picking out what you want. It's really a process of elimination. We take you out, and that's where you start going in. And I learned, okay, you like this, you like wide open spaces, you like this type of architecture, you want this kind of a backyard, you want to have this. And so these are your must-haves, these are your wants. Nothing is ever going to be 100%. Even if you build a house from the ground up, there's going to be at least 5% of it that you really don't like. And so it's just a matter of getting people to flip from it has to be 100% perfect to let's go and eliminate the ones that we really don't want, and then start talking about how can we make things work for you. That's across the board. VA, FHA, conventional, cash, it doesn't matter. Everybody goes through that process.
Yeah, and I call some of those your non-negotiables. Like, where do you spend your most time as a family? Let us know that. Do you enjoy cooking? Is that where everybody congregates to? Is a home theater that you're upstairs in a room that's soundproof? Are you outdoors people? Do you like being outdoors? Do you like yard work, gardening, all of those things? So you kind of have to look where you're at today, and then where you want to be in that home 5 or 10 or 15 years, if it's going to be that type of home. I had a couple one time, it took us was actually a 3-year process. And so we sold their home, put them in a rental, and then we found their home, and we went through the birth of a child. But they were looking for a home that was going to be a 15 basically year home where their kids would go through middle school and high school and college. And they were envisioning how they wanted the house to look when they were taking pictures for prom or Christmas or those kind of things. So to create their happy memories. So you have to look at the, what do you like to do in your home? What kind of upkeep do you want? Do you cook? Do you not cook? So all those kind of things, maybe you think, well, gosh, why does my realtor need to know that? But it does help us. And then sometimes it helps to redirect when we're debating between two properties to maybe when we get back to that market or, to look at, or, where's the location? Is it convenient to the things that are important to you? So those are all kind of things that we can kind of direct, re-guide, kind of keep you within, not go off the rails on things, but kind of figure out what are your top priorities? And then let's go back to those.
Yeah, I'm just going to tag on one thing, and Yvonne touched on it, and I just want to jump in a little more. Transparency. Transparency is key. When you're working with a local agent in a market, I know you don't know them super well, and you don't want to tell them the things that you've seen. This is especially for VA. But if there's something, and I've helped some buyers that they don't admit it until you almost get to closing and or you've closed. If you absolutely are fighting with or dealing with, a PTSD issue or something that makes you have unique issues, you don't have to tell us what the issue is. Just tell us, I really don't do well with loud noises. Because the last thing we want to do is sell you a home that once a year, the 4th of July fireworks go off right down the road and you can't handle that. I had one last year that was a young man. He wasn't very open in communicating things, and I understand that and respect it. We always joke, realtors are half counselor, half firefighter. And for him, he kept telling us what he wanted, but it didn't exist. Okay, and we finally found something that was along those lines, and we get there and he fell in love with it and it was perfect. And he finally tells us, because when he was serving, he served in an area that was just wide open. And I mean, we're coming out of, the desert issues and everything else. So he in particular needed something that had a lot of trees around in privacy. But he didn't tell us that up front. Or the why. If we know a little bit about your why, it can help us be the ultimate matchmaker, because then we rule out things that you ask, can we go look at this, or can we go look at that? Because I'll say up front, photos on listings that you see on internet sites, because you're looking at seven different cities, because you're not sure where you're going. That photo is not worth anything if you can't see what's around it or know what happens in the area throughout the year. So you need someone who's local to that area, but also just be transparent back and forth with us. We are by no means judging anyone. We just want to get you the absolute best situation for your needs.
Sure. You don't know what you don't know. So if people don't tell you what's going on in their lives, how can you as the realtor help them? So that makes perfect sense. We do have another question from the chat. Where is the VA home loan on mobile homes right now? I know several years ago you almost couldn't get one approved for mobile homes.
I'm going to jump on that one because I just closed one representing the seller. So different perspective. We had a manufactured home, and every community is different. Every community. Manufactured homes are not allowed in some communities. Manufactured homes have certain places. A lot of acreage properties, because I know in our part of Central Texas, a lot of the acreage properties are saying no manufactured homes or no temporary housing structures. So when it comes to manufactured, You have to find the ones that fit a lot of needs. The rules have tightened up the last couple of years. We know what to look for. I had one that we listed and we talked about it and we talked about all the ways we could sell it. And in the end, we had 2 offers that were both exactly the same. They were both for list price. One was a veteran's loan. Believe it or not, we went with the VA 0 down loan because whenever I talked to my sellers, their parents were veterans and that's how they had bought that property. And so who those people were mattered to them just as much as the dollar signs. For a VA loan on a manufactured home, it has to meet certain criteria. It can't be older than 10 years. That's almost anywhere now. It has to pass a foundation inspection. Whenever I say that, there are inspectors that'll go out and they basically see that it's secured down and everything's in place. VA loans have to have complete skirting around the home. I mean, it really needs to look like a house that's just sitting a little bit higher in most cases. But with a realtor that is qualified and knows the ins and outs of that, when we say that one's going to have a hard time with VA, we're talking from experience. They do have a lot more requirements on manufactured homes than they do on regular, sticks and concrete homes, but we can make it happen. And a lot of times that's the best option.
The other issue is that each lender will have their own overlays. So you have the VA has their requirements, and then the lender may have additional requirements. So it really comes down to talking with your lender and finding out what those requirements are, to make sure that you don't butt up against those overlays that they have.
And I'm going to piggyback on Debbie. That's correct. Each lender may have a little different interpretation of what they want to see in underwriting. The other clue too, sometimes when you're working with the buyer, is to reach out to a listing agent, and hopefully the listing agent is experienced and perhaps there's an existing VA loan on it already. And that will kind of give you, more of an incentive maybe to go look at it, knowing that it's probably met that criteria. There's also a website you can go onto. It won't show you if it's a VA, but it will show you if it's been deeded into the property, which would be required for the VA loan. They're not going to just make it on the structure itself. So I think knowing the product that's out there and knowing the potential will also help you there.
That's really good advice. I mean, I think it's still kind of a daunting challenge whenever you're buying different types of homes. Let's do a little bit more of a general question. Texas, as we've already talked about, is one of the most popular states for veterans. What trends are you seeing on where veterans are moving? I mean, obviously your areas, or you wouldn't have been panelist in the first place. Where are they wanting to be located? Because I thought it was a very interesting point, Yvonne. You said that it's not Bexar County. It was actually Comal County. It's not necessarily right there up against the base. So what are you guys seeing in terms of trends around the state?
Okay, so what I'm seeing, because we are between Austin and San Antonio, and we have the 3 main bases there, or so that people usually have served at or familiar with. They want to be within 30 to 45-minute drive, but yet they don't want the feel of the base. And those of you that have lived in a base community, I know you understand what I'm talking to, because if you go from New Braunfels to Universal City, it's real apparent here on the difference of the lifestyle, what's going on, so they want to raise their families, or they want to retire. They also are looking for, when you're coming out of the service, whether you're opting out or retiring out, and if they're looking for the potential, job potential. And in San Antonio right now, 2 of the big fields are the cybersecurity as well as the medical field. So I hope that's what I see a lot of my former military, that they're going into those fields after being in the military because they've had training for that. And then also, the tech world in Austin. So we're centrally located. We're not really rural anymore, but we're more rural. We're not the fast pace to raise your family in. So they can either work from home and go to Austin or San Antonio, or they can go into Austin and San Antonio, but have a different quality of life here. And I think that's what the key is, what's their quality of life? And here they tend to we still, fortunately, and Lorianne grew up in New Braunfels, so she kind of knows how it's changed, but hopefully it will continue. We still have that kind of small town, hometown feel that people tend to gravitate towards, and the water recreational activities here.
Of course, we love our tubing in New Braunfels.
I'm going to throw out a different idea, and a lot of ours, and I think this is probably nationwide. A lot of retiring veterans and even active duty are trying to get to closer to where their families are. And a lot of them are from Texas or have friends in Texas or went to college in Texas. And coming out of the last 2 years with the pandemic, it's been location, 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 as well as what's been open. Where they can go, where they can have that freedom, where they can still do all the things that they're used to doing. In our area, I've helped everyone from a Navy veteran that was 2 years, 2 years of service and qualified to veterans benefits, to people who were in the reserves and trained and qualified for veterans benefits, all the way up to a retired judge advocate general. So it really just depends. And that's the thing about the VA loan. A lot of people think that loan has certain criteria. They changed the rules not long ago where there's really not a maximum. It just depends on where you are. You don't have a certificate with a certain amount anymore like you used to not that long ago. So it's a great interest rate. It's a program that supports our veterans. And we want you in Texas. We love you in Texas. And we've got so many places. College Station has grown. When I got here, I think it was around 55,000 people, and we're at about 120,000. And that's not counting Bryan or the overall MSA. Most of the veterans that are moving to our area just don't want to be in a big city, but they want to be within about an hour. And we're an hour and a half from Killeen, which Fort Hood has everything you can imagine. And we're less than an hour and a half, or about an hour and a half from the medical center in Houston. So it comes down to access to facilities for us.
Absolutely. We do have another question from the chat. Do y'all know how lenders view the VA benefits? Do they see that as income, or is that factored in all? I think that might be referring to disability benefits or things that are paid out to the veteran.
No one else jumped in, so I'll jump in. That does count as income. The ones that we've recently done, whether it's disability or retirement. The one thing I've ran into recently is, depending on your lender, and this is why I go to your realtor to talk about who to use as far as lenders. There is a very big, very popular, and it's not the one you're thinking of, but it's another popular VA lender that whenever they're doing loan estimates, they won't pull the taxes out if you have a disability structure. Versus there's another lender in my local market that when they're pre-qualifying you and doing your loan estimate, if you have a percentage of disability, they won't count those taxes against you, because they know as long as that person is in the house, the disability tax release helps. And Texas is a pretty high property state tax. Mm-hmm. I know Yvonne and Debbie have both probably seen that lately with people moving here from places that have state income tax, because we don't have that. Yay. Our property taxes are pretty high. It's how we fund our schools. And so with that in mind, it works. There's just things you need to know about it in details. And that's where you lean into someone who's super knowledgeable.
You generally don't want to have a lender who's only done 1 or 2 VAs a year. You want to have somebody who has a good majority.
And that's where, again, your realtor will come in handy in recommending. Normally I recommend 2 or 3. That way they can, they can pick. Your builders, if you're working with a builder, they've probably vetted those people out as well, hopefully. But again, your realtor will know that builder to know any past experience with that. And, like Jody was alluding to, that can throw you out of a situation if they're miscalculating and not taking those benefits into account when it comes to your property taxes and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that lender is working in your favor there. So, going in full amount, what your budget's got to be.
That's a good point. This one was actually emailed, this question to me from someone who unfortunately couldn't attend in person. And her question is more about when it's a good idea to build a home versus buying a pre-existing. Are there any resources in place that make building a home more viable or even better option versus purchasing a pre-existing home?
Sometimes builders have incentives, and if you get some decent incentives, but they also are higher priced per square foot. So it really just depends on the area, the market. You can go out. The MLS that I'm in is HAR. You can go to har.com, pick the zip code, the area, the school district, whatever you want. Kind of do a look, and these are the new builds. These are the existing homes. Does it have what I want? Is it where I want to be? Jody talked about her area. In my area, I've got some vets that want to be in a subdivision. I've got some vets that want to have be out on land. I have some that want to be really close to Ellington, some that want to be closer to Galveston. So it's just all over the place. And so you just have to figure out where you want to be and whether or not it's viable for you. And do you have the time to build? Because it used to be 4 to 6 months was a good build time. Now, I had one that was in contract to build for almost 2 years. And we are just getting them into, hopefully they're home next month.
Yeah, on the new builds, we're probably looking 18 to 24 months right now. What Debbie was alluding to is if you're kind of dealing with a production builder. So I don't know if that question maybe was directed also at a custom build, because then you have to look into the time frame of finding the property. If you're looking for land to put it on, is it available in your market? What does that cost you? Are you going to pay cash for the land? Are you going to incorporate it into the loan itself? Then if you're doing a custom build, is the custom builder acquainted with doing and building to VA standards? And then you have to add that into the time frame as far as getting your plans drawn up. If there's permitting required, if wells and septics need to be in place. So, without really knowing if that question was directed at custom or, the production or semi kind of custom built, but know that process is going to be a longer timeline. And, and so the big elephant in the room today is the interest rates. So how is that going to affect you? Because we've seen that coming into play now as far as when people contracted to build and when their project's going to be finished, where are they going to be at interest wise? And are you okay with that? And so building gives you a lot of opportunities. It gives you the opportunity to really kind of make it unique and make it, put those top priorities in for you, those non-negotiables, but know that it's going to be take the time. And, you also have to be prepared if you're in any kind of relationship, what is that, you're going to have your thoughts, your spouse or significant other is going to have the other thoughts. So, and how are you going to work together to build that? But a realtor can guide you through that. They have, the resources for builders that do custom building. And then also that's going to maybe involve some more cost, because who's going to absorb the cost of the, the building process, the, what they would call, the construction loan part are you doing that? And that's another, that could almost be a whole nother topic if somebody's interested in that. But your realtor, again, is going to be the resource to go to walk you through that and tell you the what ifs, the ands or buts of the whole story there.
I'm going to jump in, and we say lean into your realtor a lot. We mean it. We care about this. We do this, 20 to 50 to 100 times a year. I'm in the 20 to 30 range for the record. I couldn't mentally handle 100. But at the same time, I want you to know that it's super important if you're considering building versus buying, or buying an existing home. Building is easy with a VA loan, with the exception, and this is something I've ran into over and over. Every VA loan is going to require the home be 100% complete and re-inspected by the appraiser 7 to 10 days before closing. It doesn't matter how good the builder is. A closing date is a target, not a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
When you buy an existing home, it's there, you see it, you inspect it, you know what needs to be done. When you're building also, you have to lean into your agent to help you understand what stage the neighborhood's at. Because for me, with having a lot of people that are here only 2 to 3 years, if they want to build in a brand new neighborhood, that those homes are going to look the same for the next 3 years. And when they go to resell in 2 years, they're going to have to deal with the fact that a new home costs the same thing as what they need to resell theirs for. That's a discussion we have to have. So very much a case-by-case basis. I would say in today's day and time, existing a lot of times is better, just because of the fact that it is done. And that comes down to the material shortages and the things that we're experiencing. And we've all experienced that in our lives, not just in housing.
Well, darn, Jody, I'm ready to move in my house right now without even insulation. So I can't, you're saying I can't, but okay. So what we're going to do is we have 2 more questions in the chat. And then I know that you guys want to talk about the Buffini methodology a little bit. We're almost down to time. So I'm going to, this is a good question. Y'all have talked a bit about structuring a competitive offer. Can you speak more on what you think makes an offer stand out, makes it competitive?
Okay, I'll do that one. Who's going to pay the HOA fees, the resale certificates, things like that? Are you asking for a home warranty? Are you asking for any seller contributions? Are you asking for boundaries? Who's going to pay for the boundary coverage? There's a lot of nuances, and the best way to do is for me, I pick up the phone. Hey, Yvonne, I'm going to be putting an offer in on your home at 123 Main Street. Is there anything specific that your client needs? It could be something as simple as, do they need to stay in their home like for 3 days after closing? Do they need to close early? What is that seller's needs? And then I sit down with my client and I say, okay, this is what the agent told me. And how are we going to be able to satisfy them, satisfy you, get the best that we can get for you, and go from there. But there's all little nuances, and you've got to have an agent who knows what those nuances are, because something like, for example, a resale certificate on and who's going to pay for it and things like that, that can add on for the buyer if they pay for everything, depending on the subdivision, anywhere from $1,000. I've seen it up to almost $4,000. So.
Wow.
Yeah, you got it. And you've got to have that thing. Are you willing to come to closing? Are you going to pay the title policy? Things like that.
Yeah, because I think the sellers are looking at what are they going to walk away with, and in their mind, it's the perception of how much equity are you taking of mine. Okay, it's kind of that greed, not greed, but I've lived in this home, I've acquired this equity in it, but when you come in with a lot of closing costs, and those were all the things that Deb alluded to, is that's going to erode at my equity. So it's what's going to be more receptive. You're going to want to find things out that maybe you don't need to be spending money on, or that maybe you don't need to spend as much on, like a survey. If there's an existing survey, is it acceptable? If not, can we split the cost, or who's going to buy the cost? So that's, again, where your realtor, like Deb said, picks up the phone, hopefully has a relationship with that other realtor to, not to negotiate without it being in writing. but to know what's the best way to make your offer the most successful offer or get the seller's attention if there are other offers there.
It does require you to bring a little bit more, maybe a little bit more to closing, but it won't go over appraised value, which is where, you know, everybody has that hissy fit. Oh, well, you know, I can't pay more than appraised value. Well, this is a way to maybe structure some things so that you can.
I'm going to be very specific on this one. In Texas, we pretty much all use the same contract unless you are willing to pay an attorney to provide it or to prepare it outside. It's called a promulgated form, which means the Texas Real Estate Commission gives us a form to use. There are a certain number of blanks on that form that we fill in and we're able to negotiate. For a lot of my veteran buyers that are going in a highly competitive situation, we won't tell somebody that we'll pay X amount over appraisal, because sometimes you do, and it's okay. They have the money to do that. We won't do that without putting up a large amount of earnest money. Because if you put up, and a lot of times this happens with new builders, you put up a lot of earnest money and you get it back at closing if you're using your VA zero down benefit. So if you have the funds available and you can do it, that's definitely a winning strategy, is to put more into your earnest money or your option money, because both of those fees show the seller that you're serious and you're not just, you know, going to run away, or you don't have the money to get it done, or whatever the case is. But again, lean into your realtor to know what's unique to your market. Like Debbie talked about the HOA stuff, come to Bryan College Station. We don't have the crazy transfer fees that they do in some of her neighborhoods. But at the same time, we all know the ins and the outs of the particular areas. Yvonne said that about water wells and septic systems. She's close to a river, so there's a lot of guidelines that can make that very costly. So, you know, I don't ask Yvonne to clean my teeth. You know, I go to my dentist and have the hygienist clean my teeth. Please, please, please do the same when you're buying a house. Go to someone that you know and you like and you trust, and make that relationship. And if you feel like you're part of your realtor's family and they're going to take care of you, they are.
And if you have questions, reach out. I mean, pick up the phone and call. I deal a lot with flood issues because we're right on the coast near Galveston. And so there's a lot of flooding requirements and a lot of things, and windstorm and things like that, you know, I educate my clients before we even get out the door to start looking at houses, so that they know before they go. I know that Yvonne and Jody do too. But we want you to be the best educated you can to pick the best home for you, because that's what the house becomes your home, and it's your shield against the world at times, you know, where you can walk in, close the door, and it's safe. And that's what we want for you. The other issue that you want to look at is, when you're out looking at them, is to just go in and say, for a competitive offer, sometimes just when I call Yvonne and say, hey, you know, I've got this offer, if I can make that connection with the other agent, then the other agent knows, and I give her a clean offer, the other agent knows, okay, Debbie's going to be somewhat easy to work with, and we'll pick up the phone and call if there's an issue. And that sometimes makes life so much easier all the way around.
And I want to touch on something that Debbie kind of highlighted there, is, you know, the questions ahead of time, because that's how we can save a lot of time and frustration by eliminating homes that maybe are in some of these things that you don't want to deal with or don't want to spend the money on. If you don't want to budget for flood insurance, then that eliminates any home. We don't need to go look at it. So we're not wasting your time, you know, looking at something when maybe we should be looking over here at something else. So it kind of, I don't want to say it speeds up the process, but it helps the process be more efficient for you and less frustrating, because sometimes, you know, I've learned and experienced that if we look at more than 5 homes in a day, the clients start to get confused. I start to get confused. So anything we can do to lessen your stress, because you guys have been through enough stress as it is with the lifestyle that y'all live. And I think that's what we like to bring to the table, is that servant mindhood of let us, I don't necessarily want to say take on the burden, but help you to lighten your burden of the home buying process.
Yeah, I've got some where they've never walked into the home until after we've closed, and then they've moved down. So, there's things that you can go to areavibes.com, and that'll tell you about some of the areas. You can look up some of the things about the area, so you can do some of your homework first. You can go to texasschoolguide.org to find out about school district. You can go to schools. I mean, there's places that you can go that you can get some information as well, so that you can make those decisions for you and not just be relying on your agent to say, oh yeah, this is a great area. The house may look good, but do they drive you through the neighborhood on Zoom or what? I use WhatsApp a lot. Do they drive you through the neighborhood to make sure that you can see what your neighborhood looks like? You can see what the playground looks like. You can, here's where the grocery store is. These are the types of things that you need. Because unfortunately, you don't always get a chance to go out and go find a house and see the house before you get transferred. My parents did that twice, so I understand the stress that can cause as well, because you're like, holy crap, I'm relying on a stranger to find a house for me.
And you touched on school, so I want to go to that, because I think what's been successful for a lot of my clients is they will either, if they can physically go to the schools that they're debating on, or talk to the principal of the school and find out if the school environment is one that is, if you have children, that's conducive for that child or children. And, if they're going to mesh there, because as a realtor, I'll direct you, like Deb said, to the school website to check that. But if you have a child with certain needs or, specialties that you're looking for, check with the schools before you buy. And that also helps us if you've done that. Because I've had people that were adamant about one district, they went and interviewed both, and they decided on the other district because of what they offered for their children. So, it's a little more work up front, but it eliminates the regret on the back end.
I'm going to throw into, especially on the schools, that's a huge topic for our VA families. When you're talking to an agent, this goes back to the interviewing, it all ties in. Talk to them about what their experiences are, and I'll give you a red flag. If an agent ever says, well, you want to go to the pink and beige school on the corner, there's something there, okay? And I say this as a mom and, the PTO president for 10 plus years for my child. We have relationships. Your realtor is connected to the community. Ask them about their community involvement. Ask them if they volunteer. Ask them questions that seem so silly, but you find a common ground. And if they don't ask you those same questions, you might wonder. But when it comes to the schools, most of us know not just our schools, but we know teachers and principals and staff that I could get any of you on a Zoom with someone at a school that has services that you may need, or has an amazing athletics program, or has an amazing dance program. Let us, and this is my claim to fame, realtors are the best dot connectors. If you have one that's not good at connecting the dots or tying you into the community, they may be more transactional. And we are not transactional. We are 100% about the long term.
Okay, we are very quickly running out of time. Samantha, you had a question that was a little more aimed towards the Houston area. So I'm going to connect you with Debbie since she's from the Houston area. And we'll take this one final question. And then Yvonne, you and I can chat a little later on how we can get some of that Buffini methodology information out to the folks that attended today's chats, because our rental market specialists are already on the line, and we're going to shift gears here in a minute. So one final question. Again, this comes to finding a realtor. And this is kind of a toss-up question. So would you suggest to go with a realtor that is centrally located closer to the base, even if you're not interested in that area, or or where you're looking for a home, or because they're more familiar with the VA home loan, assuming that the realtor closer to the base would be more familiar. So how would you gauge that?
Not necessarily. There's a designation that not every realtor that's familiar with VA has, but it's called MRP, the Military Relocation Professional. And if they don't have it, they've at least taken that course. And so there's a lot of Texas, like Jody said, Texas has a lot of vets. And so there's a lot of us that have used it. I would just ask the agent, how many VA loans do you usually do a year? I do about 45 transactions a year, and about a third of mine are VA. Well, okay, full upfront, last year was not quite that high, but for my percentages, but yeah, that's on average over the last few years, that's where it has been. So ask them if they've done it. If they look at you and they say, I've done one, thank you, and go.
Next.
If you can't find one, talk to your lender. Make sure your lender has done VA loans and has done a number of VA loans. Ask them. Do not just accept that a body that breathes. Ask them the questions, interview them, make sure that you're going to be, especially a lender, because you're going to be giving a lot of information. At times it's going to be like, oh my gosh, if I just give you every drop of blood in my body, will you accept that and just leave me alone? So you want to be able to have a good relationship so that when they call, you don't ignore them, because usually they are calling for something that is kind of time sensitive. So same thing with your agent. You want to make sure that you have a connection. So if I sit down and I call Michelle or I call Samantha, and I'm like, oh, hey, this is the title needs this, or lender needs this, or we've got to run and take care of this. You take my call. You don't think, oh my gosh, Debbie's calling me again. So
I'm going to jump on that real fast because Debbie said something. Yes, lean into your lender, but if you're using one of the big nationwide lenders that is offering you an agent, interview the agent and then go on some local sites and find a few more agents and interview them too, because there are a lot of agents that offer quote unquote rebates. That gets rolled into your closing costs sometimes, guys. Be careful. Be careful. There's a lot of good marketing out there. There's a lot of networking groups that claim to benefit any certain interest group, not just veterans, but a lot of them. And a lot of the agents in those programs are the ones that are just willing to pay to be in those programs more than necessarily being hyper tied to the market. So be careful. Remember, marketing is marketing. And I'll say, any one of the three of us can direct you to anyone somewhere in the United States. I have other VA or other veteran agents in my office that they come to me to get referrals to other areas because we all work together within my office, and that's not the case everywhere.
And that's the same way in my office. I have a lot of agents come and ask, do you know anybody in the market that knows the market? And then sometimes they get specific with VA loans. And within our Buffini referral network, we do have agents that specifically meet, and when we get together, talk about VA and everything. We also have some lenders within the group. If maybe you're relocating to another state, that we can help introduce you to. And I just want to touch real closely, because on the Buffini thing, it is all about relationships, and we don't just forget about you after the sale. We're there, for follow-up and in the future. So if we kind of want to sum that up in a nutshell, and there's over 10,000 Buffini agents throughout the United States that are trained. And that's the United States, and I think Puerto Rico as well, and Canada. So, and any one of the three of us can refer you within that network if you're needing someone. But, and we also hold each other to a higher standard as far as our professionalism, because it is a business, but how we run it. But we realize that it's the client that is the source of that business. And you are our best resource for future business. And so, you're our little acres of diamonds out there, and we value you, and we want to treat you that way. And so we don't desert you after the sale. So, and I've even had the situation where if I've had the listing, the buyer's agent has deserted them, and that that buyer actually down the road becomes a seller because I've picked up and maintained the relationship. So relationship is really kind of what the core value is there.
I think relationship and establishing that could be the key word of this entire chat.
Mhm.
Whether you're trying to find a realtor or within your family on how you prioritize your non-negotiables and the relationship as a family and talking about what you really want in a home. And then the relationship to what you want in your community as you try to go buy a home. I really appreciate you three ladies coming on and talking with us today about the home buying process and the VA homes. It is daunting. To our guest, if you guys have more questions, send them my way and I will get them to our panelists and we can try to follow up. And I definitely want to offer an additional opportunity to maybe do a one-off event just to talk about the Buffini methodology, since we didn't quite get to that today. But I greatly appreciate y'all's time.